morning. What are you most afraid of? That was the attendance question in my class a few weeks ago. I've used it in past years, and I've typically gotten a smattering of spiders, clowns, Miss Perkins, the dark, zombies, and math. This year was different. This year I got way more serious responses, mostly about the future. I wondered what had changed and asked the class. I learned that you all are thinking way farther ahead than anyone did when I went to school here. You're worried about getting into the right college, even as freshmen, and getting the right job when you graduate from that college. You're worried about supporting imagined families that are decades away, buying homes, paying for the educations of non-existent children. As practical as those concerns may be at some point, that conversation saddened me. You're teenagers in 2019, and you're worried about private school tuition in 2050. That worry has you feeling like everything you do today will directly affect this perfect future you seek, and so naturally, you're afraid. And the fear you're carrying is having an impact. It's making everything seem far more dire than it really is. Every little grade, every microscopic tick up or down on Brooks is artificially magnified. Small assignments are cause for anxiety, and big ones are downright terrifying. You feel more stressed than anyone ever felt when I went to Brooks. You worry much more about your future lives. You feel like you have to have a plan now, be taking the right classes now, get perfect grades now, or your future is at risk. It is breaking my heart to see you so weighed down by this worry, so motivated by fear. You don't sleep enough. You don't eat well. You don't read for pleasure. You aren't curious about the world. You don't talk about big ideas. You don't make things. You don't get outside enough to enjoy this beautiful place, and you don't play. Instead, you're looking ahead, ahead, ahead. You're working on the next thing and then the next, worried that if you don't, you won't get into perfect college X. Or you're dwelling in the past, looking back, 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 and focusing on every mistake, every bad grade, every poor choice, fearing that that was the choice that will keep you from perfect college X. Your worry and your fears, whatever their sources, are stealing your youth. And the sad irony of that is that the happiest and most successful people, those who you perhaps idolize today, got that way because they explored things that interested them. They followed their natural curiosity. They didn't buy into the idea that the key to success was straight A's in the hardest classes to gain admission to the top college, leading directly to the perfect high-paying job. They investigated topics that interested them, wandered off the path, and made time to explore the unfamiliar. Their journeys to success were not linear. They found their own way. There are so many examples of Brooks grads who have ended up in their dream jobs this way, by exploring things they loved in high school and coming back to them at some later point. Caleb was always drawing all around Brooks. He doodled his way through school. And he's made a career of it. Among many other things, he designed those cans that he's standing in front of in that grocery store. Rachel started an improvisational comedy club here, and now she's a comedian on TV. Casey held the first ever Brooks fashion show featuring his own designs, and now his handbags are a staple at Fashion Week. Nick edited the school newspaper and continued on to become a TV investigative journalist. Good friends Mike and Ashley both thought they wanted to be doctors and both began their medical studies, but they both discovered that what they really wanted was to help people in different ways. Community service at Brooks was an early indicator of that for both of them. Giff fell in love with the water rowing at Brooks, and he's been rowing drift boats down the Colorado as a fly fishing guide for the last 25 years. Rainu won the Wilder speaking contest and wrote for Still Waters, but intended to be a doctor. She's now getting her PhD in constitutional law and is using her writing and speaking skills far more than all the others. Marquise loved sports at Brooks, and that remained true through college. Though he majored in history and political science, he followed his heart when he graduated and applied for a job as a production assistant at HBO Sports. Now he's a director at ESPN Films, best known for the 30 for 30 series. Same for Harry. He loved sports so much he started a blog and developed a public readership while still a student here. Now he's a feature producer at ESPN. These are just the first few of the 50 people who answered my Facebook request yesterday afternoon on this topic. The list goes on and on. All of them would tell you the same thing. There is no straight path to some perfect future you may be imagining now. Your fear about the future and what it's driving you to do is stealing the very time, space, and motivation you need to discover what really lights up your interest, to cultivate your curiosity, to develop the confidence to explore something that matters to you, whether or not it fits into some plan for the future. Your fear is holding you hostage. So what do you do about fear? I don't have a one-size-fits-all answer, but I do know that I've had plenty of fears in my life that I've had to overcome, and that the process of overcoming them has freed me. Today, I live with very little fear, and perhaps something that worked for me could work for you. In the last 5 years, I've had 3 days at Brooks School where my fear has paralyzed me. They were the days I had to go back to work after my son was suspended, my marriage ended, and my mother died. On each of these mornings, I sat on my bed, frozen. My fear told me, you can't do this. Fear said people were talking about me, gossiping, speculating, judging. Fear made me angry at them and encouraged me to blame others for my problems. Fear told me people would see all of my inadequacies. I was supposed to be perfect, but I was a failure, and now everyone knew. Fear told me I was weak, that I'd get emotional and cry, and everyone would see. I was an adult and was supposed to be strong, but fear said I wasn't. Each of those mornings, fear told me, hide, be ashamed, you can't do it, you'll fail. It had me seeing myself and my community through a false negative lens that could have kept me shut in my house, but it didn't. Because each time, miraculously, a small, quiet voice in my head said, no, you can do this. And I listened. That tiny voice, that grain of courage helped me get out the door on those mornings, and something amazing happened. I stepped back into my life, and my community, this community, met me with love and compassion every time. None of my fears came true. They were all imaginary. I faced them, and I survived. More than that, I faced them, and they vanished. They never came back. It's been liberating. So what in my experience might be transferable to you? First, finding the courage to face your fears rather than believing the lies they're telling you. And second, having faith that your community, the people who matter, will love and support you when you do that. I know you have that courage because I see it in you every day. I see your courage when you walk out of the servery and pause, waiting for a place to sit and eat your lunch. I see your courage as you hobble around campus on crutches, persevering despite the pain and your fears about your athletic career. I see your courage when you get a bad grade after doing your best and you're standing in the hall trying not to cry. I see your courage when a community member says something that hurts and you find a way to speak up rather than swallow that pain. I see your courage when you stand before us and sing, play, dance, read, act, or share your heart. I see your courage when depression holds you down in your bed and you push back and get up and begin your day. I see your courage when something tragic has happened in your life and you manage to keep going. I see your courage when you take that first step to get help when you're struggling, or when you reach out in concern about a friend who is. I see your courage every day, and I'm in awe. I have no doubt that the courage you need to neutralize your fears is already inside you, and I promise you that we, your community, are here when you're ready to use it. It's taken me all year to write this speech. There's so much I've wanted to explore with you that I've literally written 5 speeches since August. But over the weekend, I realized that this is what I wanted to share, in part because I've sensed so much fear and so many negative emotions swirling in our community this year. As psychiatrist Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said in the excerpt Seamus read earlier, there really are only 2 emotions, love and fear. All positive emotions come from love, and all negative emotions come from fear. So a side benefit of facing your fears is freeing yourself of all those negative emotions that go with them. Something to think about in the future. Today, though, I want you to think about what role fear plays in your life. I want you to examine how it might be limiting you, constricting you, holding you back from discovering what is real and true and fascinating and beautiful about yourself. I want you to analyze whether it's pushing you to make decisions that aren't true to who you are, or causing you to avoid trying things that do interest you and that just might change your life, as so many Brooksians before you have learned. And the next time you feel that fear rising up or feel those negative emotions stirring, I want you to listen for that quiet voice, the voice of your own courage, born of the love and courage all around you. It's in this room. It's why I'm able to stand up here and talk to you. In case you need a reminder as the days go by, I'll be putting this up in the school building. When you see it, remember this. Your courage is greater than your fear, and in vanquishing your fear, you're freeing yourself. Thank you.